The sun was beginning to fall behind the skyline of Lagos when Nolwazi arrived at the gates of the Obasa mansion, her heart steady but her hands damp with quiet nerves. She had only one bag, no makeup on her face, and shoes that had seen many miles. But her spirit carried something even older than her footsteps: silence, pride, and the hunger to survive. She had taken many cleaning jobs before: houses of loud women, dusty offices, even hospital wards. But this one felt different. From the outside, the Obasa estate looked like it had swallowed the entire world and coated it with glass and gold. It wasn't a house, it was a kingdom. And Nolwazi was there to mop its floors. At the servants' entrance, a tall man in a wine-colored uniform looked her over without smiling. "No mistakes," he said. "You clean. You serve. You keep your mouth closed. Do not speak to guests. Do not wander. If you are caught where you shouldn't be, you will be sent home without pay." Nolwazi nodded once. She had no reason to argue. Every naira counted. That night, the Obasa mansion came alive like something out of a wealthy man's dream. The lights glowed soft and warm like honey. Cars with tinted glass slid through the gates. The air was thick with perfume, cigar smoke, and secrets. Men in tailored suits laughed too loudly. Women in gowns that sparkled like river water drifted across the ballroom with glasses of champagne that cost more than Nolwazi's rent. She kept her head down, just like they told her. She moved between tables, poured wine, picked up empty glasses, and bowed when people clicked their fingers. Her eyes did not wander, until they did. There was a hallway, quiet and dimly lit, that curved away from the main party. The carpet there looked untouched. No one walked that path. And yet, something about it pulled her. Her hand still holding the tray, Nolwazi stepped carefully toward it, just enough to peer around the corner. The hallway was lined with portraits: old men in agbadas, graceful women in gel. Members of the Obasa family, no doubt. But then, her eyes locked on something that didn't belong. A small black frame, a picture of a little girl, 5 or 6. Her brown skin smooth, her eyes bright, her smile tilted just so. And her yellow Ankara dress, the exact one Nolwazi remembered, wearing when she was a child, the dress her mother had sewn by hand before she disappeared. Her whole body froze. The tray in her hand tipped. One glass wobbled but did not fall. Her chest tightened. Her legs locked in place. It was her. She knew it. The scar above the eyebrow, the chipped tooth, the beads in the hair. That was her. But how? She had never stepped inside this house in her life. Nolwazi blinked fast, backed away quickly, and forced herself back into the ballroom like nothing had happened. Her face was calm, but her heart screamed. She placed the tray down in the kitchen with a trembling hand and pretended to drink water just to steady her breath. She didn't know it, but high above the marble staircase, standing behind the balcony rail, Ayotund Obasa had been watching the corridor the entire time. His face was unreadable, his hands tucked into the pockets of his white kaftan. But his eyes never left her, because the moment she paused in front of that photo, he knew she had seen it. And the story he had spent years burying had just opened its eyes again. The next morning, Nolwazi returned to the Obasa mansion with a strange heaviness in her chest. The sun was out, the air was warm, but nothing inside her felt calm. She didn't sleep well. All night, the photo had floated in her mind like smoke. That little girl in the yellow dress, her own face staring back at her from a wall that should have had no memory of her. She told herself not to look again, not to think about it. She was here to work. But the moment she stepped through the back door of the mansion, her feet moved faster than her thoughts. She walked quickly too. The corridor, past the kitchen, past the ballroom, past the grand staircase. Her breath hitched as she turned the corner. But the photo was gone. Gone. As if it had never been there. The black frame was missing. The wall was bare, clean, empty. Her blood turned cold. She blinked hard, then again. Maybe she had imagined it? Maybe she was tired, but deep inside she knew the truth. It was there, and someone had taken it down. A voice snapped from behind her. "You again?" It was one of the house supervisors, his tone sharp and full of suspicion. "Didn't they tell you to stay out of this wing?" Nolwazi tried to apologize, but his words were louder than her. Silence. "If you want to lose your job, keep wandering. This is not your house. Stay in your place." She mumbled an apology, bowed slightly, and backed away. But the heat on her skin wasn't from shame. It was fear. Someone had seen her looking. Someone didn't want her to know. Back in the kitchen, the mood was thick. Even the air smelled different. Too quiet. Too alert. She kept her head down, but her hands moved slower now. Every corner of the house felt like it was hiding something. Later that afternoon, as she peeled cassava beside the open window, old Mama Risi, the senior cook with gray at her temples and steady hands, leaned closer and spoke softly. "That photo you saw?" she whispered, eyes still fixed on the yam she was slicing. "You're not crazy. It was real. And that child, I remember her." Nolwazi froze. Her eyes widened. Her voice stuck behind her lips. "She used to run through these halls?" Mama Risi continued. "She loved to hide under tables and laugh when the butlers got mad. Her name was Zanele. Sweet child. But she vanished. Long. I'll go. After the fire." Nolwazi's lips finally found shape. "Fire?" Mama Risi nodded, still slicing, as if the memory had become just another ingredient in her day. "One wing of the house burned down years ago. They said it was an accident, but that little girl was never seen again." Mama Risi paused, wiped her hands, and walked to the back pantry. When she returned, she held out something in her hand, a tiny melted doll with a broken beaded head. "This belonged to her," she said. "I never had the heart to throw it away." Nolwazi took it gently, her fingers trembling as they closed around it. She remembered it, vaguely, a flash of a toy held close during thunder, the smell of wood smoke, screams, then darkness. That night, while sweeping near the staff library, Nolwazi noticed an old pile of magazines and newspapers shoved behind a cupboard. Most were torn or faded, until one yellowed headline caught her eye. "Obasa Estate Fire. Girl presumed. Dead in tragic blaze." The photo was grainy, the print half blurred, but she could read enough. The date matched the year she had been found in a churchyard, alone with no memory, no family, and a single name written on a scrap of cloth: Nolwazi. She fell to her knees. That missing girl was her. Everything pointed to one truth. She hadn't just stumbled into the Obasa mansion. She had come home. But the house that once burned her hadn't finished its story. Because what happened to Zanele was only the beginning. And someone powerful had worked hard to make sure she stayed forgotten. The days that followed were heavy with unsaid things. Nolwazi moved through the mansion like a shadow that had begun to grow a name. She still swept, mopped, and polished like a servant. But her eyes had changed. Every step she took was a step closer to a memory she never chose to forget. Only that someone else had stolen it from her. She no longer feared the corridors. Instead, she studied them. Each painting, each floorboard, each scent in the air. She belonged to this house in a way she didn't understand yet. But the walls knew. The silence knew. And he knew. One afternoon, as the staff were busy preparing for another private dinner, she felt a presence behind her. Calm, silent, but powerful. She turned slowly. It was Ayotunde Obasa. The young billionaire stood in his crisp kaftan, hands behind his back, his face unreadable. He said nothing for a moment, just watched her. Then, his voice came low, steady. "You used to play in the garden," he said, as if testing a truth. "You loved the mango trees. You'd climb too high and scare everyone." Nolwazi blinked. Her lips parted, but no words came out. He was no longer speaking like a stranger. "I remember you," he added softly. "Not clearly, but the laugh, the dress. I knew something the night I saw you look at that photo." She dared to ask, why was it even there? Ayotunde looked away, toward the window. "I put it up years ago. Someone sent it anonymously. No name, no explanation. Just a photo of a girl who looked like someone we lost." He gestured toward the back garden, where the grass shimmered in the golden light. "Come," he said. Nolwazi followed him through the long hallway, out the side door, past a row of carved stones, until they reached a mango tree with a thick trunk and low branches. He knelt at its base, moved aside a patch of soft earth, and pulled out a rusted metal box. Inside, wrapped in faded cloth, was a tiny silver necklace with a sun-shaped pendant. Her breath caught. She touched it, and time broke. She had worn that necklace the night of the fire. Ayotunde said nothing as she sank to the ground beside him, clutching it to her chest. "My name wasn't always Nolwazi," she whispered. "That name was given to me after I was found alone. I didn't even know what I had lost until I walked into this house." He turned to face her fully. "Your name was Zanele, and you were my half-sister." Her eyes lifted slowly, searching his. "My father, he loved a woman from the village, your mother. It was before he married mine. You were born in secret. He used to visit you. He planned to bring you here when you were older. But then the fire happened, and my mother said, you died." Nolwazi's hands shook. The necklace felt heavier now, like a weight of truth. Her voice cracked. "Then why does she hate me so much?" she asked. "What did I do to deserve her eyes following me like poison?" Ayotunde looked at the sky and let out a long breath. "Because you were the heir." She stared. "My father changed his will before he died," he said. "He left half the estate to the first child he ever had. You. The rest would go to me. But if you were dead, everything would belong to us." He paused. "To her." A silence settled between them, long and aching. Nolwazi's tears finally fell, slow and quiet. She wasn't just unwanted. She was erased, on purpose. And now, the very woman who tried to burn her memory had no idea that the fire had failed. Zanele had survived, and Nolwazi was ready to remember. The next day, the mansion felt colder. The air carried a silence that had nothing to do with peace. Nolwazi walked the polished corridors with quiet steps. But inside her, a storm had started. One made of memories, truth, and the sting of betrayal that now had a name. She passed Lady Temilade Obasa in the hallway once that morning. The older woman didn't speak, but her eyes were sharp like thorns, dragging across Nolwazi's face as if trying to cut her into nothing. Later, as Nolwazi arranged flowers in the entrance hall, the woman finally spoke. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't frown. She smiled, but her words burned. "You don't belong here, girl. And you never did," Lady Temilade said, smoothly, arranging her rings like blades. You may wear a uniform and polish my floors, but that blood in your veins, it's not welcome under this roof. You're not family. You're a leftover." Nolwazi's lips didn't move. She simply bowed her head slightly, the way she had learned to survive. She picked up her tray and walked away. Not because she was afraid, but because now she had a mission. That night, while Lady Temelad attended a charity gala in town, Nolwazi returned to the master bedroom with a duster in her hand and a different plan in her heart. She moved quickly, quietly. Her eyes scanned the bookshelves, the vanity, the hidden drawers lined with silk and secrets. She wasn't looking for jewelry or perfume. She was looking for proof. She found it beneath the marble dressing table, in a locked drawer that gave way to a spoon's pressure. A leather-bound journal, thin, heavy, and carefully hidden beneath stacks of old envelopes. She opened it. The handwriting was neat. Too neat. That girl, Chimamanda. She came from the gutters with her clay pots and fake smiles. Thought she could climb above her place. My husband fell for her foolish face and gave her a child. That child became his light, his shame, his obsession. So I did what any woman of power would do. I erased the mistake. Nolwazi's breath caught. She turned the page. I warned him. I told him to send them away. But no, he wanted to. Bring them here. Said she deserved a name. That the child was his legacy. I could not allow it. The fire was supposed to be simple, fast, quiet, but someone saved the girl. I never found out who. Her hand trembled. The woman had confessed. She had set the fire that nearly killed a child. The child that now cleaned her floor. And she had done it not in panic, but with calculation. She had tried to kill Chimamanda. She had tried to kill Zanele. She had tried to kill her. Behind her, the door clicked. Nolwazi turned too late. Ayotund stood in the doorway, staring at the open journal in her hands. His chest rose and fell, like waves crashing into a broken wall. He stepped forward, took the journal, read just enough, and froze. Then, his hand flew. A wine glass on the dresser flew across the room and shattered against the wall. You killed my father's only good memory, he shouted, voice shaking with rage. The one thing that made him smile after all your cruelty. You tried to burn it out of existence. Lady Temelad, who had just returned, appeared at the door. Her face tightened. Watch your mouth, Ayotund. But the look he gave her held no fear. You don't control this house anymore, he said. You buried the truth, but you couldn't bury her. She's alive, and now, so is the story. The next morning, the Obasa mansion no longer felt like a palace. It felt like a place where lies had finally lost their echo. The servants whispered, the walls listened, and at the center of it all, Ayotund Obasa stood in front of the press, with Nolwazi beside him. No longer a maid, no longer a mystery, but something far more dangerous to the rich, a girl who remembered. Cameras flashed, journalists fought for space, microphones rose like hungry mouths. Ayotunde's voice was calm, but it carried weight. I was lied to, he said. She was lied to. The will was real. The heir was real. Her name is Nolwazi Zanele Chimamanda Obasa. And this house once belonged to her just as much as it did to me. Murmurs shook the crowd. Reporters turned sharply. Lady Temelad was not present. She had retreated, sick with scandal, and hiding behind silence for the first time in her life. But Nolwazi didn't smile. When asked what she would do with the fortune, the lands, the family name, she simply stepped forward, her voice soft but unshakable. I didn't come for gold, she said. I came for answers. The next day, as the house quieted and the press moved on, a nun arrived at the estate gate with a sealed envelope in hand. Her robes were pale, her hands wrinkled, her voice like wind across dry leaves. "I was told to deliver this," she said, "from one of our residents. She's been with us for 20 years. Her name is Chimamanda." Ayotund froze. Nolwazi stepped forward, her fingers shaking as she opened the letter. It was written in a soft, looping hand, full of emotion. "My child, if this letter finds you, then the prayers I whispered every night have been answered. I was taken away before I could protect you. I was hidden, locked away, told you had died. But I never stopped believing in your spirit. If you are reading this, come to me. Come home." Nolwazi didn't speak. She ran. That same evening, she arrived at a quiet women's shelter in Osun State, a place where forgotten women wove beads and sang softly in the evening light. She entered a small room with white curtains and a clay jug on the floor. The woman sitting by the window turned slowly. Her hair was gray now, her body smaller, but her eyes were the same. Nolwazi whispered, "Mama." The woman stood, unsure. Her lips trembled. She reached forward with both hands, as if afraid to believe. "Zanele?" she whispered. And then it happened. 2 foreheads pressed together, tears spilling freely, breath shaking with years of grief. There were no words strong enough, just the sound of 2 souls finding each other again after too much silence. Weeks passed. Nolwazi did not return to the mansion. She chose a different path. With her small share of the inheritance, the part she couldn't legally refuse, she opened a small compound just outside Lagos, a center for forgotten girls, for those left at doorsteps, for those who cleaned homes where their own faces were erased. She named it the Fire Tree House, where lost stories grow back. On the day of the launch, reporters gathered again, but this time they came to witness hope, not scandal. And Ayotund Obasa stood beside her, not as a billionaire, not as a brother, but as a man who believed in her story and who chose truth over pride. Nolwazi stood at the gate of the new home, watching little girls laugh beneath the mango trees, and whispered to herself, the photo was never the end. It was only the beginning. So, my friends, was justice truly served? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Say flame if this story lit something in your heart. And don't forget to subscribe, because more truths like this are still waiting to be found.